up, everybody? Welcome to the last episode of our mid-season break we're going to take of the Guys Who Cry podcast. Thank you all for being here. What's up, Ruben?
That's right. We need a break.
We need a break.
We gotta do a little R&R.
Mostly Greg, our sound guy, needs a break because he's been doing so much work.
My goodness.
Set up, it's wild.
He has been working hard. And to do our mid-season finale, we got a wonderful guest.
Your friend,
Elle Perkins. What's up?
Hi,
Dude,
guys.
this is awesome. I'm so excited to have you on. You posted something a few weeks ago, and as soon as that happened, I was like, this is a perfect person to get on the podcast. And do you want to explain why I think you were a perfect person for the podcast?
Well, I'm gonna guess to read inside your mind and not what our previous conversations were. The post you're referring to, I really came out publicly on Instagram in regards to the way I have lived my life for a while now, but just making it very, very public and very in line with myself, and coming out as gender queer was something that I had kind of been doing for a while, and like a lot of people in my immediate circle knew about, but it felt weird to have kind of this sort of like double life where like I had this Instagram account and I was like, do I just kind of leave it how it is and like leave this old person there, or do I kind of bring that all together? Because I mean that's still part of who I was in the past, and there's still parts of that are there for me. And Ruben reached out to me, and here I am.
That's awesome. When you share that on the public sphere, especially with social media, it definitely takes disclosure to a second level, so to another level. So can you define gender queer first?
Yes.
By the way, is that something I can ask?
Yeah. I think the cool thing about gender queer is like it doesn't have like a strict definition.
Sure.
Transgender, it kind of like sort of falls under that umbrella of transgender, meaning, not of like you're assigned gender at birth, and
right.
That's kind of the basis of it. And then you have sort of transgender women and transgender men who kind of go from one side to the other.
Right.
And gender queer is much more of like a middle ground that you can kind of pick and choose and sort of feels what feels right to you.
So that term could be associated more with like gender fluid or non-binary?
Yeah, non-binary is probably the closest. Fluid tends to go like back and forth more, whereas non-binary and gender queer tend to be kind of more like you can still go back and forth a little bit, but it's kind of just more like I'm sort of sitting in the middle as opposed to moving.
Not clearly or harshly identifying with one or the other. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So cool.
Yeah, so another reason why I really wanted to get Elle on is because of our background and how we know each other.
Church?
Which is church, and that is a very polarizing thing nowadays.
Sure.
Especially in this community, in this sphere. And so I thought that would be such a wonderful story for people who maybe out there did grow up with really strict conservative views and like and an upbringing and struggling, because that is a struggle, right, Elle? I mean, I would assume that like this has been a big journey for you.
Yeah. What Ruben's referring to is kind of my background, and I grew up with a dad who was and still is a pastor. So very early on, I mean, from birth until 18, when I moved out to go to college, I was heavily involved with the church. I was going to church multiple times a week, very much involved in like the summer Bible schools, every Sunday going to church, midweek church, and definitely a challenge when you think about what that life is like, as you both kind of know, especially being raised in the church. I know Ruben was, and Adam, were you also kind of raised in the
Yeah, I was also raised in evangelical Southern Baptist church. Yeah, I did worship leading for a good part of my life as well. So,
yeah. And I guess the challenging thing for me is like there was always sort of something that I felt about me that I wasn't sure what to do about, because I knew like what the right answer was. I knew like what the Bible said and what my parents taught me.
Sure.
And to go from like, there's like this inner voice inside of me, like that doesn't seem to be in alignment with that. Like, what do I do with that? And that took me a long time.
What age did you sort of notice that sort of discrepancy? Because it was definitely for me, it was like puberty, especially when you start struggling with like sexual things like masturbation or lust or whatever. That's where you start to have a little bit of those like moral qualms that come in, like, well, I have these urges, but I'm not sure it's right based on what I've been taught. Kind of when did you start experiencing that sort of mental struggle?
Yeah. I think puberty, like the teenage years, because that's also like really when you start to form an identity, I think.
True.
Like, you know, who are you? Because as a child, like you can be much more fluid, but as a teenager, they're like, okay, what are you going to do with your life? You know?
Yeah. I was curious if your parents, I think my parents were pretty cool about not pushing any particular gender norms on me, because I grew up like as a musician, but I did play some sports and things. Did you kind of get pushed in any one particular direction, just in terms of traditional gender norms, activities? What were your kind of interests or?
Yeah. Definitely felt the, like the responsibility, because I was also the oldest of 5. And so like, I was always like, you were the pastor's son, you were setting the example, like you were like showing like everybody like what to do. And it's like, this is like the path you're supposed to take.
Right.
So I don't think I had as much fluidity or the ability to explore, in a way that, you know, you can question, like, okay, like why do we do things this way? Like, why do I have to wear clothing like this?
Yeah.
You know?
And that's pretty common, I think, for pastors' kids anyway. There's that pressure, and especially without any, questioning of your gender identity. It's hard enough as a pastor's kid, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you brought up sports, and then that is one of the biggest things I associate with Elle was they were an incredible basketball player.
Oh, really?
I have to say, you can't tell from the video, but how tall are you, Elle?
6'4".
6'4".
Oh, that helps.
Yeah.
Okay. Jealous. Okay.
Dude, you're only like 2 inches shorter than that. I'm 5'7", bro.
I'm 5, like 9.5. Like, that's being generous to myself.
He's
6'4".
7 inches taller than me.
You're far superior. No, I'm kidding.
I'm just imagining us, like all 3 of us standing next to each other, and like my head being cut off of the screen.
Yeah, because he's out of frame. You gotta raise the tripod for you. But that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I just think those gender norms that were pushed on you. Did you feel it was like forced to kind of go into basketball? Was it something you really wanted to do? Like,
not basketball specifically. I think part of it too is like I felt internally like I really wanted to please my parents, and I feel like a lot of people feel that.
Yeah.
And I felt like the best way I could please my parents is by being the best Christian and like the most traditional sense possible of like what is a Christian, and like by doing that I could please my parents.
100%. Yeah. Just to talk about the gender norm activities, I still just struggle why certain activities, even clothing, are just associated with one gender or another. It's always kind of confounded me. And obviously it's societal. It depends on the decade. It depends on what country you live in and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I know a couple, and they actually share a closet, which I think is pretty awesome. It has to be pretty nice to be with somebody that you guys are relatively the same size. So if it's like something cool, you guys can both wear it.
That's for sure. That's
amazing.
I do wear a lot of your clothes now. Yeah. Ruben's always got, I got this cool shirt for you. I found it at the thrift store. And then like it fits me perfectly. Awesome. I'm like, what the heck? Like, and then I'll wear it and take it. Like, what's going on here?
That's so great.
We should just move in together probably.
So we also talk a lot about relationships on this show and like dating. You are married? Am I?
No, I'm not married. I am in a relationship.
Okay.
But yeah, I do want to, that'd be a great thing to talk about, because that kind of sort of interties with like my identity.
Sure.
So backtracking a number of years, when I moved to Colorado after being in New York City, I was in a long-term relationship. And this is before I sort of came to grips with who I was. and was in a relationship for about 4 years before we broke up. And we broke up kind of around the same time with me coming out. But it was something that, like, that was a small piece of it, but there was other things with that relationship that, you know, led to the breakup as well. But I felt sort of trapped in a relationship because this person had fallen in love with me as I previously was, and any sort of change and departure from that was super, super scary. And it was scary for me too, because I was like, you know, will they still love me if I change and I like grow my hair out and I start dressing differently, and if I, you know, pick up different hobbies and all these things. And so I left that relationship and thought I was going to be single like forever. I was like, you know what? I am in a weird place, and I don't know, like, if anybody will like me like the way that, like, I'm going to be.
Right.
Because what I'd always built before was like, I'm like this basketball player and like this military guy and somebody that, you know, is just like goes to the gym, gets really big and strong, and like I'm gonna build an image that like everybody's like so many people are attracted to.
Right.
But like that's not a real relationship, you know. That's like, you know, so fake, and like it doesn't really speak to my core. And I don't know what you guys talk about in terms of relationships, but for me, it's really like the more I was able to know myself, the more I was able to get to know other people. And that happened with my friendships first, and then it happened with the person I'm dating now. And that's been beautiful.
How did those new communities, how did you find those people, either friends or your significant other now, to hang out with? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
How did you change your social circles, you know?
Yeah, it's been hard because I moved out to Denver like literally a week before the lockdown started with the pandemic. So I was I didn't know anybody in Denver except my ex. And yeah, I was like, man, usually I like just go play basketball somewhere, and like that's how I meet people. And it was hard because like gyms were closed and everything was so different. So I mean, I've met people through like Bumble's been great, like Bumble, like BFF.
Bumble BFF,
I've met
sure.
A number of people that way.
Nice.
I have met people just by, I think, I'm trying to think of other people.
Did you use the Meetup app at all or anything?
I didn't. I used it a few times, but like I also really enjoy running.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been able to do throughout the pandemic. So going to meetups and like meeting people through going on group runs together has been really nice.
Helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I met my partner actually also on Bumble.
Oh, nice.
And it was one of those things where they messaged me and said, I want to know you. And we met up at a park, and like there wasn't like all this like back and forth on messaging. Like I wasn't I mean, I don't know what your guys' relation or what your relationship is with like dating apps, but it's a hard world.
We are both still single.
Yeah. Both still single.
And we have been using the apps almost exclusively
long
for
time.
6 years.
I think I've been going on 10 at least. Did you say you met your partner pretty quickly, meaning there wasn't a lot of messaging exchange before meeting in person? It was like the same
there was
day,
like
week.
almost like no messaging exchange. Like it was, I want to get to know you. Let's meet at a park. And then we're at a park. And like probably within about like a week of like that first message, like we met up, and then it's like Sloan's Lake Park out here. It's like a beautiful lake. You can see the Rocky Mountains, and we walked, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 miles or something. Like I feel like it was something ridiculous, but we just like talked, and that was
it's the best. This is the absolute best. Just to get lost in conversation, especially when you're walking. That's a great first date, actually.
Yeah. I'm kind of jealous, but the relationship thing that kind of was really interesting to me. I actually brought this up with a friend of mine, actually our first ever guest, and I was talking to her on the phone the other day, and I was talking to her, hey, we got this really cool guest coming on next week, and I kind of told her the quick synopsis of your story, and then I was like, it kind of begs the questions though. Like if I met somebody who identified as a woman, right? And they wanted to transition. I started asking myself these questions, like what would I do in that situation?
Yeah.
And I went back and forth and I was talking to Anna, and Anna was like, that's a great question. Cause I think a lot of people aren't prepared for that. A majority of people aren't. And it's an interesting thing to just even think about, and just to ask these questions, I think is very important, moving forward as a community and moving forward as a species, Well,
and I think too, any significant identity change, through halfway through a relationship or into a relationship can be somewhat traumatizing to the partner, or not able to be understood by the partner. If you make some wild career choice, you have some really good day job, you're making good money, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to give that up and work for a nonprofit and make almost nothing, to your partner, they could be like, well, hey, wait a second, we've got kids, we got a family, and a lot of those things could be very jarring. So I'm glad that it's not just limited to a gender identity change, but I mean, that's a good question to ask, I think, for anyone who makes a huge change in the middle of a relationship.
So did you come out with your partner or with your ex when you were with them?
Yeah. That's when I really started like gripping this question, because like I remember very distinctly I'd actually gotten engaged with my ex. There's a lot sort of behind that. I remember one night I'd been like sort of like experimenting kind of behind closed doors with like, my appearance and like thinking about different things. And then one night I like asked myself, like, am I transgender? And I couldn't, like, if I was like talking to myself honestly, like I couldn't say no to that. And like, that was like super, super jarring for me, because, I feel like most people, like, if you like ask yourself, like, are you trans? Like most people say no, like, and that's like an easy question. Like, of course not. But I was like really trying to like dive deep into like my inner self, and like, I couldn't say no to that. And so that led to a number of different conversations with my ex, and that was, amongst other things, part of us separating. And like it wasn't the only reason, for sure, but I had not really been true and not really like honest with myself. Like I chased this identity of like this strong masculine male, because like I thought that's what like the world wanted, but like that's not really what I wanted. I just wanted to be loved.
Did you resent your partner's resent your partner's reaction by wanting to separate, or was it kind of like, I kind of understand because I've been sort of leading a life that's not really genuine to who I am? Did you understand their decision?
It was very much a mutual decision.
Okay.
It wasn't all on her, and it wasn't all on me. But the question you do ask is a very good one. If your partner comes out and with this major change, how do you deal with that? For me, I've now that I've kind of come out to myself and come out to the world, like I've asked myself like that same question. What if my partner came out as like something, different?
Yeah, just different, yeah.
Right. Because my partner is also queer, in terms of like gender and sexuality, but
yeah.
I'm like, what if they like changed their hair like a huge amount, or like maybe like started hormones, or like something like vastly different. And for me, it goes really down to like values. Like, what are the values that you and your partner share? Are they aligned to begin with? And does the change they're going to make, is that a departure from those values, or are they in line still?
Right.
And I think if they're in line still, then I think there's room to work forward with that. But if that's a departure and separation of values, then I don't think there's anything to stand on. Especially
if you've fallen in love with a person's personality, character, values, and those things haven't changed, but maybe it's more of an external or outward appearance change. that love can still hold true through that transition, that change. And others, it could be difficult. It's like someone who gains a lot of weight or loses a lot of weight. To the other person, that could be, well, that you're kind of not the same person that I knew anymore. But to a lot of people, if they love each other, who they are at the core, that might not matter that much, everyone's different, I guess. But
yeah, because I think like what I told Anna was I would support them and I would still like love them as a person, but that I don't know how I don't think I would be able to still be with that person in a romantic
but
way.
You would try to support them as much as you could, as a human, as a person. I think it would go
from being my girlfriend to being my best friend.
Yeah.
And I would still support them and I would still be there for them. But
sure,
as far as being together,
might be difficult.
It would be difficult for me to get past it. And I said, I don't think that makes me a bad person, but it's a hard question to deal with. And it's a hard road to kind of go down but it's also important to have those conversations because we're reaching a time and a place where like, we are kind of becoming way more, I mean, I like to think, but there's a lot of things happening now that kind of go against what I'm thinking.
The trajectory of
I was going to say
accepting and inclusive, but
I want to say that we're getting more accepting, but
there's a lot of roadblocks, obviously.
A lot of roadblocks that are happening. We don't need to get
one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. But
me personally, I am very accepting of a lot of people. I'm a very interesting case as a Christian because I take that seriously about being accepting of people, because I think if Jesus was here today, I think he would 100% be accepting of everybody,
right?
No matter what they are. He said red and yellow, black and white.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's an interesting question to think about. It is.
Yeah. Can I ask about pronouns real quick, because I think it is helpful for listeners to just be more sensitive and in tune if they meet someone who is considers themselves transgender or non-binary, to just be asking what the pronouns are. And if you personally have encountered many people who either get the pronouns wrong, and can you tell if they're being genuine, if they genuinely made a mistake, or they just refuse to accept your pronouns?
Yeah. I guess to start off, I do use they and them pronouns. And I think what you ask is like a really slippery question in terms of like, can you guess somebody's intent?
Yeah.
And I think we, if we're being honest with ourselves, I think we're like way worse at it than we like to believe.
Sure.
Like, I think we like to be like, oh, that person was definitely trying to like piss me off or like
right.
mess with me.
Maybe they had no idea.
When really like they just like made a mistake. And so the way I think I approach it personally is, like giving people the benefit of the doubt that they are trying to be a decent human being with like, showing love and compassion to another person.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but I think giving people the benefit of the doubt, not just with pronouns, but with a lot of things, goes a long way.
100%. Yeah, and sometimes, especially if it's a quick interaction or you meet someone at a store or somewhere, it's very fast. It's easy for people to make mistakes. I can't tell you how many times I've been to like a Wendy's drive-thru, clearly heard what I think would be a woman's voice, and just happened to say "sir." I have no idea why. No idea why. I wasn't even envisioning that in my head, and just like, "Oh, thank you, sir," and then drove away. It was like, wait, I'm pretty sure that was a woman. And, so it's just funny how, we make mistakes with words all the time, and it's good to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I mean, like, having just like a like good interaction can happen even with like the wrong pronouns,
Yeah,
like
true.
That doesn't need to spoil the entire interaction. And
right.
I don't let it spoil it for me. Like if somebody calls me sir, which happens, like that, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I could, like, as the conversation continues, then I can find out more if, like, do I want to continue having a conversation with this person, regardless of the pronouns, or not? Like,
I'm kind of curious. Do you guys use sir and ma'am just in general? Like,
I
people, is it common out there in Colorado, in Denver? Do people say sir, ma'am a lot?
not as much. I mean, definitely in like the service industry, like,
True.
But I mean, I also come from like a military background, and I was in the military for 8 years, and like that is like so pervasive.
Right.
But in terms of like just like everyday use, like I don't think so.
I can't tell you how many times I've said it here in Delaware to people that I perceive as older than me, and they're just like, "What? Why'd you call me sir? Don't call me sir. I feel old." Like they're kind of offended, you know?
Yeah.
I think I've had more people be offended because they think it's an age thing rather than like a pronoun thing.
Or a traditional respect thing.
I am not old enough to be called a sir or a ma'am.
It's just cultural, you know. It's if you're raised up with any Southern culture at all, it's you know, that's what you say. So that's cool.
Well, Elle, let's get into Elle, the person. This is obviously a big part of your life, but like we want to.
It's not everything.
It's not everything. This is not. I mean, this is not everything about you.
Being 6'4" is your identity. That's the thing we are all jealous about. Gosh dang it. I'm really mad. No,
he's mad.
Just kidding.
Adam is really upset.
I mean, it was a huge part of my identity, especially playing basketball.
No, it is. It is. Yeah, go ahead. You can. I was going to ask a whole other thing about identity in basketball. That's another conversation.
Okay. So we talked about high school a little bit. That's where we kind of met, right? Basketball. I'm going to be honest. I've probably been a really terrible person by not keeping in touch with you, but I'm not really sure what happened to you after high school. So what happened after high school? You know, where'd you go for college? What did you study? All of that.
Yeah. It was, I really wanted to get out of Delaware.
Fair enough. Me too. Still here. I'm just kidding.
Like, and it's not like that I like necessarily hated Delaware. I just like, there's like this entire like United States, and having like been in all these other places, I can't tell you how many times people ask me what state Delaware is in.
Yeah, right.
Like
really?
They think it's like in Ohio or something.
Yeah, it's a county.
There is a Delaware. Ohio.
Yeah, it's a Delaware County, Pennsylvania too. Yeah. Wild.
But yeah, so I left Delaware. I went and got a degree in biology at Gordon College, which I don't know if you guys know, but it is a Christian liberal arts college in Massachusetts.
So. Okay.
Yeah. It's in terms of Christian colleges go, it's definitely on the more liberal side. Like they're not Bob Jones by any means.
Right.
We had Ashley Wagner on. Do you remember Ashley Wagner?
Yeah. She was in my class.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So she went to, I forget where, Crown. But like we were talking about like the Pensacola like guys and girls sidewalks.
Yeah,
and
super
stuff.
conservative. Yeah. Oh man, Gordon wasn't like that, I assume.
No. Like they definitely had like gendered dorms, and like you had, if you like a member of the opposite gender was in your dorm room, you had to leave the door open. You know, even if like it was like just like not if it was your significant other, like if you wanted to be friends with the opposite sex, like leave the door open when you guys are being friends. It was wild. But you know, I think that was where I really started to question my Christianity. I took some intro to philosophy class, and then I started learning a lot about biology and like natural selection. And in the third class I took was actually Old Testament history, and learning a lot about how like the Old Testament kind of came to be, and like sort of like cultural context of which it came to be. And I had what I would call like an existential crisis in college. Like, oh my God, like is everything I taught, like how much of it is true, how much of it is not, like how do I know? And that was extremely hard for somebody that's like just like kind of out on their own for the first time.
College does that for a lot of people. I feel like, you know, that's where we're learning a lot more and don't have our parents to really guide us. We can make up our mind ourselves. So so I really initially strongly identified as like an atheist for like a while, and then I was like, wait, you know, it sounds like very definitive, you know? Yeah, that's what I said. That's like it's too much.
Said that last week.
Too much. I don't like it.
So I was like, you know, maybe atheist is like too strong. Maybe I'll be like go somewhere like a little bit softer, like agnosticism. And I kind of stayed there for a long time. But so that sort of aside, and that's also what started me. Like started reading like a lot of philosophy, a lot of like very like also atheist books, just like being like, okay, like let me see the other side. Let me see like what Richard Dawkins thinks about Christianity, and it wasn't very nice. I don't know if I've read any of his stuff, but very very malicious. And I was like, man, that's also not a very good vibe, or like doesn't really sit right with me.
Right.
So, but anyway, I kind of came to grips with how I sort of oriented myself into the world, at least from a religion standpoint, and at the same time got my degree in biology and applied to med school. And I went to med school actually in Philadelphia right after college. I went to Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Wow.
And so I was there for 4 years, living in Philadelphia. And also I traveled quite a bit during med school too, with just going to different rotations. And didn't really have much time for like anything else other than studies in terms of like exploring myself or like anything else other than like, okay, like this is your next like hoop to jump through. And after that, I went into a specialty training, which is called residency. And I did 3 years of emergency medicine residency, and I trained in Harlem, New York. And lived in New York during that period of time, and that was really, really eye-opening from a cultural perspective, because I mean, as you guys know, with like New York City, there's so much fit into like this one small place where everybody's from somewhere else, whether it's a different state, a different country. Like it was really beautiful, but also, I really enjoyed my time in New York. And once I finished my training, I lived there for a little bit longer, and then I moved out to Colorado to be near to the mountains, because that was really what I felt called me.
Oh, wait, and do you practice now? Do you practice medicine now? Sorry, I may have missed that.
So I did locums for a while, which is basically a traveling doctor.
Yeah.
I traveled to like a bunch of different rural parts of the world, or parts of the country, rather, not the world. Yeah. But like rural Michigan, Minnesota, North Dakota, Arizona, upstate New York, and I would do like more temporary work.
Did you like traveling for work, or did you feel like it was hard to like kind of settle any one place with like a social life and you know, obviously dating and all that stuff? You know?
I always wondered that about
myself.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I both loved and hated it. The social part was really hard, because like, oh, like where, like, you want to come grab a drink or something? Nope, I'm like 4 states away.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I think the part for me during this period of time was I could not sit still, because I was so uncomfortable with myself. And I'm like, and no matter, like, I could fly all the way across the country and fly back and then fly to like the Grand Canyon and like do some vacation time there, and like I never felt free.
Yep.
Which was insane. Like, as I was like kind of reflecting on this, that I could go anywhere I wanted, but did not feel free, because I could not escape this.
Yep.
I could not escape my mind. And that was really, really hard.
Yeah. It's amazing how you can go anywhere in the world. You can go to the most beautiful places, the best mountaintop, but if you're struggling inside with something, I mean, sometimes I think you can meet different cultures and go to different places and have somewhat of a revelation or a meditative experience. But if you're struggling internally, it goes everywhere.
The grass is always greener.
Yeah. That too. Yeah.
You want to do a little quick fire, Elle?
Do a quick fire. You're good at the quick fire.
I'm good at the quick fire. We're going to give you like 5 questions. There's not anything like crazy, big, deep questions. They're literally like silly, just so the audience can get to know you a little bit.
And then we'll do a mental health check.
Mental health check after that. All right. So, ready? Now, first question I have to ask you, as a basketball player, who was your favorite basketball player growing up?
Allen Iverson.
Sixers your favorite team too? Is that kind of?
Oh yeah, for sure. Still are.
Ugh, man, it's tough. I don't want to get into sports right now. I don't want to get into the Sixers. Very disappointing. Favorite musical artist?
Growing up or now?
Both.
Ooh. Growing up for Lion K.
We almost went to
the
see
concert,
them. Like,
and then I got too tired. And now
they're still touring.
Yeah, they just did. Yeah, they just did a tour. Yeah, it was like yeah.
Oh my god! I think, and I right now, there's so many. Like my musical horizon has grown so much in like the last few years. But I think my go-to is still probably Dead Mouse.
That's fair.
A little bit more EDM. Oh,
man,
dude,
I know Dead Mouse.
Greg was pumping his fist. There he is. There he is.
There you go. Yeah, if Dead Mouse is like anywhere close nearby, like I try and make sure I'm off and see him because like he does some amazing live stuff. Like
you and Cortland could talk a lot about EDM.
You gotta love his attitude too.
He's good.
He just doesn't care.
He one time when I went to a show, he's like, I gotta pee. So he like put the music on a loop and like left stage for like 5 minutes.
That's amazing. That's very entertaining.
That is definitely him.
Yeah. All right, and last quick fire question: if you could have dinner with anybody, past or present, or who would it be?
Oh my god, I am on a big Alan Watts kick right now. Do you guys know him?
I don't know who that is.
He is a writer, philosopher. I actually got introduced to him on YouTube because he has a lot of lectures that he does. He's back in the, I want to say like in the like the 60s and 70s.
Died 1970.
He was actually but he actually trained as an Anglican priest, but also did a lot of studies in like Eastern religion too. And very, very well spoken, very interesting to listen to because he puts
he said he was influenced by Carl Jung, the sort of Christian psychologist, contemporary of Freud. So that's pretty cool. Huh.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Definitely check him out on YouTube. He's amazing to listen to.
That's where all I get my information. It's funny because I listen to just to try to enlighten myself on topics with like trans rights activism and debates about it and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty interesting. I still feel like I know nothing, but we'll do the mental health check.
Yeah.
So we do a mental health check where we ask guests and we all go around the room and just say, how do we feel in this moment on a scale from 0 to 10? 0 being like, I probably need help. I would like to reach out to somebody. 10 being more euphoric, like elation on top of the mountain, kind of experience. So,
love that. That's awesome.
Greg, how about you go first? You want to go first, Greg?
Oh, yeah, I'm like a 7 or an 8 because this is working well. So
the technology's working, so Greg's always doing good. We're always sitting around 7s, 8s probably on average. But what about you, Ruben?
Yeah, I think I'm at like an 8.5. Work has been rough, but I think lately I've been a little bit more at peace with a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was just seeing somebody last week. I went on a third date with this girl last week.
Interesting. Oh, yes.
And the third date is typically, the one where
make or
guys
break,
cuddle on the couch.
Oh, that one too.
It's a big moment.
Yeah.
But the date
was... Are you a big cuddler, Ruben?
Oh, big cuddler. I
honestly
am one of those guys that do not mind being little spoon.
Oh, I love it.
People are lying. Oh, guys are lying if they say they don't like little spoon.
It's fun.
Yeah.
There's something about being in the arms of somebody else sometimes, which is very nice.
Yes.
Anyway, third date. We went out to Philly. Her and I had a great time, but it was just like awkward. Like it was a third date. I think we kind of both felt it. As soon as we got out of the car, she was like, I have to be honest. I don't see this going anywhere. And I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, me neither.
Yeah.
I was like, thank goodness. This was great. You're awesome. If you ever want to grab a drink sometime and you're in Wilmington, like, let me know.
Yeah.
But after that, I was kind of like, you know what?
A little bit of a weight off your shoulders.
I'm feeling good.
That's good. That's good. I'm probably opposite. I'm okay. I'm not sad or anything, but I'm probably more angry with my situation. No surprise. I can talk about it later. But I'd probably say 6 today because I was like stressed with like frustration, anger. But I mean, I actually feel okay now. So podcasting always helps.
Yeah.
So how about you?
That sounds great. I'm glad that you have like this outlet and that you are like, I mean, especially like the name, it just like grabs me and like grabs my attention. And I'm glad that you're able to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. And if you're comfortable being honest, because if you feel really, really bad, it is actually hard to say it out loud. So if you want to pass to, you're welcome to.
Yeah. No, I feel great. I mean, right now I'm at a 10.
Wow.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
I I am obviously on this podcast and have a great time. But even before that, I just celebrated some time. It was actually my birthday on Saturday, and me and my partner went out to the mountains, had a little cabin out by some lakes, and we're outdoors, and it was quite incredible stuff.
That's awesome. We all need that retreat and that vacation time. So, well, Elle, thank you so much for coming out and being patient with us. And
one last thing, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to just, if there's somebody listening that is struggling with this right now, because I don't know if people listen to this and but who knows who's listening.
Sure. Yeah.
That is struggling with this kind of identity crisis, we'll call it. What would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if it's not a crisis, just a question.
Sure.
Hopefully it doesn't get to a crisis. But I think the biggest thing for me is asking yourself, what is it that you like? And I'm going to also steal a question from Glennon Doyle, who's a really good author. If you guys are maybe not familiar with him, I don't know. But she asks, what is the most beautiful and true life that you can imagine? And I think if you can answer that question without looking at other people being like, I want that or I want that, it's like, what do you want? I think if you can look at that and answer that question, then I think that'll put you on the right path. And it's not an easy path, but I think that's going to move you in the right way.
That's a good question for all of us to answer.
Wow, sure. What a great mid-season finale.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we are actually going to take a break for about a month or so. Kind of work on more of the technology stuff. Take some time off. We need a break as we've been experimenting and working with a lot of stuff. So
yeah, because we all hate each other right now.
All hate each other right now. No, actually, Ruben and I haven't hung out in a while, so we need to catch up. But
yeah, I just did an R&R trip too.
That's good. Oh, yeah, you have to tell us about it next time. You'll save some stories. But anyway, Elle, thanks again for joining us. Greg, thank you for your help as always. And guys, thank you for listening. Reach out to us, send us messages, tell us what you think or things that we could ask or discuss on the next podcast. We'll see you guys in like a month or so.
Something like that. We'll see when we're ready.
Yeah. So see you in a month and be entertained.